Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Karina Scott is a social media influencer and marketing consultant who advocates always being kind to people because you never know when you're going to need them. Karina, thank you very much for being my podcast guest today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Karina, you're a social media expert and the founder of Girl About Social, which I believe is about to celebrate a birthday.
It is. I'm actually turning 2. I turned 2 on the 6th of July, so I'm very, very excited. And it's gone very fast. I can't believe that I'm actually saying that because it only feels like I started 3 minutes ago, let alone almost 2 years ago. It's mad, absolutely mad.
Well, congratulations. Now, obviously, 2 years ago, we were in a bit of a lockdown at that time. So what was it that made you start a business at that particular time?
It was actually that reason. I lost my job just before we went into lockdown. So I needed to keep going. I already had the domain Girl About. It was something that I have wanted to do for a while, but never really had the confidence to do it. And I think losing my job just meant, well, actually, you've cut, the safety net has gone, there's nothing, what's the worst that can happen now? Because I feel for a lot of people starting a business, it's the fear of, that regular income coming in. I think that's the biggest fear, isn't it? So when that's kind of gone and you're like, well, I haven't got a regular income coming in now, I think it really pushed me to take that step. So, obviously a lot of negative came from the lockdown, but for me, it was actually a positive moment because it allowed me to take a step back and stop and actually do something that I wanted to do. So in that sense, I am grateful for that happening.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at that point, there was kind of nothing to lose, really, was there?
Completely. That was it. Almost like the saying, like, what's the worst that can happen? And you're like, well, I don't get a client in comparison to what I'm doing now, which was looking for jobs. And marketing and creative as an industry were one of the hardest hit because obviously we'd already take up, a small percentage of a company's budget, but they needed that budget obviously to pay for the other employees that were in the business from a sales side. So for me, I was, I think I applied for within the first month or two of sort of losing my role, over 200 jobs on LinkedIn. And I think I maybe got 2 interviews, but no one was hiring. So I was like, I have to just keep going. So it was an interesting time, but I am extremely grateful for it. And it was positive for me in the end, which was good.
Yeah. So have you always been in marketing? Is that your background?
It is, yeah. I been in marketing now for 8-9 years. I've worked on a mixture of B2B and B2C products and B2C clients. So I did more from a marketing side, so that kind of offline and online with campaigns and print and looking after distribution and creating products and stuff like that, and then moved over into the social media. But I think when I'm talking to small businesses understand social media more than when you just say marketing.
Yes.
So that's kind of why I focused on that more, because that's what people were wanting and needed support with, especially during the last 2 years when they were moving from being offline onto going online and setting up social media channels and stuff like that. So it's been I can't believe it as well as 8 years. Like, oh my God, I feel really old.
So what were your previous roles like?
They had a mixture. I worked a lot in recruitment, so I had the joy of trying to make accountancy and finance sound sexy, which it isn't the easiest of things. But I did a lot of campaign work. I did some events. I actually got to work with Alistair Campbell, which was really exciting on an event back in the day. I also looked after all of the products that recruiters would send out to their clients, and recruiters love pens, so I think we would do something like 150,000 pens a month or something ridiculous. They loved a pen. So I used to look after all that, as well as kind of, looking into the social media and marketing. But I think for me, what I love the most about marketing is I love the behind the scenes of a product and of a brand. And I love, like, IKEA was actually the reason why I got into this, because I took business studies as an A-level, and one of our topics was all about IKEA and how smart IKEA are with like how they set out the store to make sure that you go around the entire store to buy things. And I remember just being like, I love doing things like this to get people to convince people that they need something. And
Yeah.
it's like, how many things do you honestly need in IKEA when you actually just go in for napkins and you come out like £100 later?
Oh,
So I
yeah.
love that. And that's what I love about it the most.
Yeah, it's really hard to
Uh,
go around IKEA and not come out with anything, isn't it?
exactly. You're like, I swear I came in for some, like, I don't know, some sort of lunch boxes. And you're like, well, I needed this pan and I needed these knives. So, yeah, but I love the behind the scenes of a brand. I find it so interesting.
Mm.
So interesting.
So 2020, you decided to set up your new fledgling business. What were the steps that you took, particularly because you kind of couldn't go out anywhere or see anybody?
No, the biggest thing was networking and LinkedIn.
Mm.
They were my two biggest, I guess they were my two biggest sales tools. When I set up, I obviously, as mentioned, I already had the domain. So I worked a lot with my own support network. So one of my closest friends actually built my website, and I just paid her back in food. I used to cook dinner for her and stuff like that, and just kind of use that network really. So I went on to LinkedIn and I had quite a big following and followers and connections already, and I would just message people asking if they needed support, whether it was like for a couple of hours a week or a day a week, and then I started looking into networking, online networking groups, and for me that was the best way to talk to people, because like you said, we couldn't get out to have
Mm.
those conversations. So I didn't join loads because obviously it can be quite overwhelming, especially in lockdown. It was a lot of talking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of online conversations. But I just joined a few, and actually that way kind of sort of spoke to more people and explained what I did and if anybody needed any help with anything. And I think back then, it's one thing that we talk about a lot in the community, especially as during lockdown. I just said yes to every
Mm.
opportunity. And sometimes they didn't pay well, but at the same time, I was like, well, it's another thing to add as a case study. And
Yeah.
right now, that's what I want to focus on.
Yeah.
And then over the years, that's sort of what you learn from, and that sort of changes. But yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, networking, that was definitely the three biggest sales tools for me.
Yeah. And is that where your first clients came from then?
Yes, they did. They came from literally my own network. So again, friends and family. Even my own grandma has got me one of my clients from one of her friends that needed some help, which has been amazing. I still work with her to this day, actually. And yeah, a lot of them came from. Funny enough, a lot of them came from people within the actual group itself, not them actually going out. Normally when you're in networking, they're like, "Oh, I might know somebody."
Yes.
A lot of them were people within the group saying, "Oh my God, I need help with mine." So it was really, really good. But yeah, the majority of them came from the actual networking groups. And then from then, once they got to know you, they would then sort of share how, my expertise with other people. And that kind of spiraled from there, really.
Yeah. So who are your clients? What kind of businesses do you support?
I'm very fortunate. It's a mixture. I've worked with councils. I've worked with like Scarborough Council, Richmond Council, Tower Hamlets, all the way down to smaller kind of retail brands, like the likes of like Heavenly Feet and London Lane. And then I've also worked with the University of East Anglia, which has been fabulous. It honestly, it depends. And I think the biggest thing that I love, because I'm not connected to one industry, I just love to be part of a fun and exciting campaign or project. And
Mm.
sometimes that could be something as much as in Scarborough launching an ice rink, all the way
Mm.
down to working with influencer marketing for a footwear brand. So it's just a mixture. But my biggest thing is I just love to be interested in what I'm doing. So yeah, it's a great mixture of like B2B and B2C brands,
Yeah.
no matter how big or small, really. So yeah, it's a good mixture, definitely a good
Yeah.
mixture.
So tell me about some of the specific services that you offer your clients.
So we do a nice little mixture, actually. So we kind of focus a lot on the support side. So one of the biggest services that I love to offer is actually training and masterclasses,
Mm.
because I appreciate that a lot of small businesses don't always have the budgets for either, to hire someone in internally or even to outsource the work. So what I like to do is I host what I like to call sassy masterclasses, which is a way for businesses to join for just an hour, and to go through and understand what they can do for their social media first. And once they kind of get through that, then they can be like, oh, okay, like now maybe I might need the help. So that's one of like my biggest services that I love to offer. We also do social media management, and with that, that's a matter of like looking at the content, scheduling it, writing the captions, and then kind of letting the client know about if they've got any DMs or anything else that comes through. And two of my newest services that I offer is Instagram engagement boosters and Instagram feed styling. So again, over the last year, a lot of businesses are like, I don't know what I'm doing on Instagram. I know I need to post, but it doesn't look that great. The images aren't that great. I'm not a graphic designer.
Yeah.
So what I actually do is I can offer 15 images and 15 captions for a set price.
Yeah.
And with that, then, you could then go ahead and post yourself, but you kind of know what the feed looks like and what you're saying about it. As well as the engagement side. So again, people love to talk at their audience instead of talking to them. So the biggest way to engage is to actually talk to your audience, but appreciate we're all extremely busy. So what we actually do is spend organically and manually, we spend 30 minutes a day on your account talking to your audience and helping you to kind of increase your engagement from there. And that's two of my most popular services, I think, because they're the most manageable, and you see, you can see straight away the results from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like the biggest ones, really. But no matter what it is, we like to just talk to a client and go through what they want, whether they want to launch an event or they want help with a campaign or they just need a couple of weeks support on something. But my favorite channel is Instagram, so I tend to work with a lot of businesses that want to build their presence on Instagram, mostly, really.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you got your first clients very much through networking. Was networking
Yes.
something that you did before when you were employed?
No, not at all. Never. To be honest with you, I don't know. I just never really thought about it because I think when you're employed, you're a bit like where your job is coming from. Like, well, I know what's happening next month, and the only people I ever networked with are the people that were within my team. I was part of the Content Marketing Association as a company. We were very lucky that the marketing team had a membership. So I would go to a couple of events, but to be honest with you, I never really did that much talking to other people. I would go and listen to somebody and then kind of leave. But now it's completely changed my outlook, and it's my biggest sort of tip that I always share with people is like network as much as possible because your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
Like it's so important. And especially within, and you might be the same actually, like even within what you do, it's always who you know, it's not what you know.
Yes.
And a lot of jobs have come in because somebody said, oh, you should speak to Karina. I've not applied for it or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's down to that kind of, and it's a little bit like influencer marketing, to be honest with you, because I think the reason why that is so popular is because you trust the advice of someone saying you should do this. And I think that's the same with networking. If someone says to you, I recommend this person, you're more likely to want to work with them rather than having to source that yourself organically and try and find it all yourself. So I'm a huge advocate for networking. I think it's so important. So important.
So how much networking are you doing at the moment?
I do quite a lot. I'm part of the same networking group as you. That's obviously we talk on a Tuesday, and then within that, I actually have set up a separate group that we call the Supper Club, which right now we're based in Northampton, where we invite people to come to an event or a workshop once a month. But within that, you do an activity. So it could be like yoga or a manifesting class, or we're doing a calligraphy course. But actually, you're still talking to other business owners and just other people within my area. So it's another way to get out there and talk to people face to face without that kind of salesy or like stuffy way to do it. So within that, I do a lot, and I talk to a lot of people, as well as the engaging on Instagram as well. And I just post tips, and obviously with my masterclasses, I try to connect with as many people. So I do it in different ways, and it always being directly online, but at the same time, I'm always trying to build my network up and meet as many new people as possible.
Yeah. So how much do you do online and face to face? What kind of proportion is that?
Oh, I would probably say, I guess at the moment, I would probably say it's almost like 50-50 because I do the online side, but then also, I try to kind of go for coffees as much as possible or go for lunch or brunch with people to kind of like, oh, no, do you fancy going for a chat to talk about something? So I guess it's almost half. I think it almost varies with the month as well. If you've got an extra busy month, you might do more online, but at the same time, if you're a bit quieter, and now the sun is shining as well, it's more any excuse to get out and sit in a pub garden somewhere with someone. So I would say it's a good kind of a good mixture, I would say. Almost half and half.
Yeah. So do you think that your business would be where it is now without networking?
No, not at all. I think networking and having that support group of people around you is the reason why it's done so well, because a lot of the roles that I've got have come from purely just recommendations. It's not from me physically doing something to get that job in. And especially when I work with, I work with one person, and then if I finish a contract, for instance, then they're like, oh, I've told this person about you, and they're going to get in touch. So I would say that the success of it is down to having that network. And my mum has always said to me, like, to be kind to people, because you never know when you need that person. So I always, no matter who I meet, I'm always trying to, to be as friendly as possible, because some of the jobs that I've had in have been from consultants that I worked with 4 or 5 years ago that have been like, oh, I saw you on LinkedIn and I'm now at a new business and they need this. Like, could you help? Yeah. And you think, God, like if you were rude to that person, you wouldn't even remember that. So that definitely helps.
Yeah. So you're 2 years in now. What have you learned over the last 2 years?
I would say the things that I've learned, I think the first thing is, and my friend Catherine said this to me years ago, is every superwoman needs a day to wash out her tights. And with that, it's okay to kind of take a break. I think when you're a business owner, and especially when you're starting, it is so easy to say yes to everything. Yeah. And suddenly you burn yourself out because you end up working all day, in the evenings, at the weekends. So I think it's taking that moment to be like, it's actually okay to say no, and it's okay to take a step back. And I think that I really, really like, I've learned that, as well as, don't let your expectations get lost in translation. So to be upfront with clients about what your scope of work is. And again, I think sometimes money can be quite a bit of an awkward conversation, can't it? It's quite hard to kind of talk about that. So I'm always like very, really clear now, and I've got my terms, and I'm like, right, this is what I said I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to do. If you want more, then that's a separate conversation. Because it's very easy to be like, well, I'll just do it because I'm just going to say yes. I'd also say trust in your gut. I think, again, when you're a business owner, it's really hard you're like, is this the right decision? Especially if you're by yourself, you've not got a business partner to rely on to talk to. So a lot of my business decisions are gone, are through my gut. If it feels like a no, then I don't do it. And for whatever reason, I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to step away from this job or this person or whatever it is. Again, your network, being your net worth, is so important, to talk to people, to go out more, to just socialize, and just take every opportunity to meet somebody, because you never know when you're gonna need them in the future, or they need you. Understanding that success isn't just kind of getting from A to B. There's sometimes a lot of peaks and a lot of troughs as well. So it doesn't always kind of continue in that very happy flow of like every month you're going to have, I don't know if you've seen it, but on social, there's always like loads of coaches talk about how you can get like a 6-figure month. And you're like, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes you have great months and sometimes you have quieter months, but that doesn't mean that you're not successful. Which probably leads on to the last one, which is comparison is the thief of joy. It's so easy to compare yourself to others. And again, we all do jobs that someone else is doing. So it's very easy to be like, oh, well, that person's doing that, and they've got more followers than me, and they've got all this really cool jobs. But actually focus on what you're doing. And I've told myself that a lot, to be like, it's fine. Like, you're still doing it. Just because you're not working with whoever, it doesn't matter that you're not still doing it. So I think they're the biggest 6.
I think it's far more useful to compare yourself with yourself and where you were 6 months ago, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, God, yeah. And also, you only see what people put on social. You don't actually see what's going on behind the scenes. So actually, it's very easy to someone say, I'm having a great month. And you're like, in comparison to what? We don't know.
Yes.
So yeah, you're so right. Just compare yourself to yourself, not to someone else. Like, you have no idea who they are. Probably will never meet sometimes. Just some random person on social.
So if you were starting now, what would you do differently? What would I do differently?
I think the biggest thing that I would do differently, which I know is I don't know if anyone would agree with this, I think I actually wouldn't take on as many little clients. And what I mean by little is not from an SME perspective. What I mean is the ones that are like, oh, I've only got £50 this month, and you just kind of said yes to them. Because I think with that, sometimes you end up doing so many of them that you don't then remember other things that you could be doing for your own business.
Yeah.
So I think I would probably take a step back and, be like, okay, I'm going to build this up, but I'm going to build it up slowly and make sure that the people that I work with are the right types of client. I think that's my biggest thing. And I would say I got a business coach a year into my business. And actually, if I started again, I'd have one from the beginning, just so that way I'm always constantly on the right path. Because for me, having a business coach is completely, really, really helped me and my confidence with building a business as well. So maybe having them from the beginning, there may be things that I would have done differently or not done. However, I think at the same time, it's all about learning, isn't it? And if you don't do these things, you can't learn from them.
Yes.
And, it's still been a successful business. I'm turning 2. So actually a lot of the stuff hasn't been negative. I think it's just kind of, I wouldn't do it now, but at the same time, I don't regret anything that I have done or any client that I've worked with, because I've learned a lot about building a business and about myself as well. So, yeah. I don't think there's not too much. Just kind of keep going and stay positive. That's definitely what I would do. Just stay positive.
So if people want to find out more about you and your business, Karina, or they'd like to work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, I've got my website, which is girlaboutsocial.co.uk. So on there, there's information about all of my services, as well as a contact form. And I'm always available to chat on Instagram, which is at girlaboutsocial, but without the I in girl. So it's GRL about social, as well as finding me on LinkedIn. And I'm Karina Scott on LinkedIn. So yeah, kind of just connect, like, share, talk, engage. I'm always free for a chat.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on your 2nd anniversary, and best of luck for the next several years.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.